Ambassador Velther stepped off his diplomatic vessel onto Earth's surface for the first time. The air felt heavy and thick compared to his homeworld. Everything about this planet seemed rough and uncomfortable. He had done this 47 times before with other species. The pattern was always the same. New civilizations discovered faster-than-light travel, sent out their first clumsy signals, and the Galactic Council arrived to guide them. It usually took 50 years to teach them the basics of space travel, diplomacy, and trade. Humans would be no different. A tall man in a crisp blue uniform waited at the landing platform. He smiled warmly and extended his hand in the human greeting Velther had studied. Ambassador Velther, welcome to Earth. I'm Captain Robert Hayes, Director of the Human Space Exploration Program. Velther took the hand carefully. Humans gripped quite firmly. Captain Hayes. The Council is pleased to begin the mentorship process with your species. We have much to teach you. Robert's smile didn't fade, but something flickered in his eyes. We're eager to learn. Would you like to see our facilities first? They walked through the sprawling complex. Velther had expected primitive workshops and basic laboratories. Instead, he saw massive construction bays building sleek vessels. Hundreds of humans worked alongside sophisticated machines and holographic displays. How many ships have you built since achieving FTL capability? Velther asked. 43 operational vessels so far. Another 27 in construction. Velther stopped walking. That was 6 months ago. You've built 43 interstellar ships in 6 months. Well, the first dozen were pretty rough, Robert admitted. We've made a lot of improvements since then. They entered a design laboratory where engineers huddled around a massive holographic projection of a ship. Velther recognized the basic FTL drive configuration, but everything else looked wrong. The humans had changed almost every system. This is your original design? Velther pointed to a smaller model in the corner. That's the Mark I. We're on Mark IV now. Robert pulled up a comparison display. The Mark IV is 40% faster, uses 30% less fuel, and costs half as much to build. Velther's throat tightened. It had taken his people 200 years to improve their FTL drives by 10%. This is highly unusual. The Council will want to review these modifications for safety. Of course. We've already sent the technical specifications to your office. Robert gestured to another section. Want to see the colonies? Colonies? Plural? 4 so far. New Washington, Armstrong Station, Hope's Landing, and Frontier Base. Each one has between 500 and 2,000 people. We're planning 8 more by next year. Velther felt his confidence crumbling. New species typically took a decade to establish their first colony. They needed guidance on atmospheric processing, habitat construction, and resource management. Humans had done it 4 times in 6 months. Captain Hayes, I must be direct. The Council's mentorship program exists for good reasons. Space is dangerous. There are protocols developed over thousands of years. You cannot simply rush forward without proper guidance. Robert nodded slowly. I understand your concern, Ambassador, but we've been pretty careful. Every colony has full life support redundancy. We've run thousands of simulations. Our safety record has been perfect so far. So far, Velther emphasized. But you lack experience with the truly dangerous situations. Pirate raids, solar anomalies, engine failures in deep space. When those happen, you'll need Council expertise. You're probably right, Robert agreed. We don't know what we don't know. They continued the tour. Velther tried to maintain his diplomatic composure, but everything he saw disturbed him. Humans had developed their own navigation systems instead of using the Council's standard charts. They had created artificial intelligence assistants that translated alien languages better than the Council's 10,000-year-old translation matrix. They had even begun trading with independent colonies, somehow finding markets the Council hadn't bothered with. As the day ended, Velther prepared his report. He would recommend close supervision. These humans were talented but reckless. They needed the Council's wisdom before they hurt themselves or others. Then the alarm sounded. Robert's communication device chirped urgently. He listened for a moment, his face growing serious. Ambassador, we've received a distress signal. A Council mining colony in the Tertius system is under attack by pirates. 23 workers trapped inside. Velther pulled up the star charts. Tertius system. That's 3 days away at maximum Council speed. I'll contact the nearest patrol fleet immediately. 3 days. Robert's jaw tightened. Those people don't have 3 days. There's no alternative. That's how long it takes. Not for us. Robert was already moving toward the command center. The Persistence is our fastest ship. We can make it in 18 hours using the new slipstream drive. 18 hours? Impossible. Want to come along and see? Velther stared at the human captain. By all council protocols they should wait for proper backup. But 23 people would die if they waited. Very well, Velther said quietly. Show me what your species can do. The Persistence launched within 30 minutes. Velther strapped himself into the observer seat on the bridge, his heart's pounding harder than he wanted to admit. The ship looked nothing like council vessels. Everything was compact, efficient, and covered in displays showing more information than he could process. Captain Robert Hayes sat in the command chair, calm and focused. Around him, 6 crew members worked at their stations. They were all young. Too young, by council standards, to be running an interstellar rescue mission. Engaging slipstream drive in 10 seconds, announced the pilot, a woman named Lieutenant Emma Clark. Velther gripped his seat. He had traveled through slipstream space thousands of times, but never in a human ship that supposedly moved 40% faster than anything the council had built. The jump was smoother than he expected. The Persistence slid into slipstream like a blade through water. 17 hours, 42 minutes to destination, Emma reported. Robert nodded. Good. Let's use the time to plan. What do we know about the attackers? The tactical officer, a muscular man named Thomas Reed, pulled up holographic displays. 3 pirate vessels. Medium-class raiders. They've been hitting council mining operations for 2 years. Standard pirate tactics. They'll strip the facility for valuables and leave no witnesses. Velther leaned forward. The council has tried to stop them many times. They use defensive formations that are very difficult to break. You'll need at least 6 ships and heavy weapons. We have 1 ship and light weapons, Robert said. So we'll have to do something different. Different how? That's what we're figuring out. Robert gestured to his crew. Ideas? The tactical discussion that followed made Velther deeply uncomfortable. Council military doctrine was 4,000 years old. It was tested, proven, and based on countless battles. There were proper procedures for every situation. You gathered superior forces. You took defensive positions. You wore down the enemy with sustained firepower. You never rushed in alone. Humans apparently didn't care about proper procedures. We could use the asteroid field for cover, Emma suggested. Come in from an unexpected angle. They'll have sensors covering all approaches, Thomas countered. But if we drop out of slipstream early and coast in on minimal power, we might get close before they detect us. And then what? Asked another crew member, a communications specialist named David Park. We can't win a straight fight against 3 ships. We don't fight their fight, Robert said. We make them fight ours. Confusion and speed over formation and firepower. Velther couldn't stay silent. Captain Hayes, with respect, you're describing tactics that have no precedent. The Council has compiled military data from 200 species across 4,000 years. What you're suggesting contradicts all established wisdom. Robert looked at him directly. Ambassador, has your established wisdom caught these pirates yet? Velther had no answer. They emerged from slipstream 2 million kilometers from the mining colony. The Persistence went dark immediately, all non-essential systems shutting down. They drifted forward on momentum alone, just another piece of space debris. 3 pirate vessels confirmed, Thomas whispered, though there was no need to whisper in space. They're docked with the colony. Looks like they're still loading stolen cargo. Life signs in the colony? 23. All grouped together in the central habitat. Pirates probably have them locked down. Robert studied the tactical display for a long moment. All right. Here's what we do. Thomas, prepare drone package Alpha. Emma, I need you to thread us through those asteroids at exactly the right angle. David, when I give the signal, flood all channels with electronic noise. I want their sensors blind and their communications scrambled. That's considered unsporting, Velther protested. Council military honor codes prohibit. We're not the Council, Robert interrupted. And those 23 people don't care about honor codes. They care about living. The Persistence moved like a hunting animal. Emma piloted them through the asteroid field with impossible precision, the ship rolling and diving between rocks at speeds that made Velther's stomach turn. They got within 5,000 kilometers before the pirates detected them. By then it was too late. David activated the electronic countermeasures. The pirates' communication channels exploded with static and false signals. At the same moment, Thomas launched 30 small drones. Each one was barely larger than Velther's hand, but they scattered in all directions, creating dozens of false targets on the pirate sensors. The pirate ships broke formation trying to track which target was real. Now, Robert said calmly. The Persistence accelerated directly at the nearest pirate ship. Velther thought they would collide. At the last possible second, Emma rolled the ship 90 degrees and fired a precise burst at the pirate vessel's engine nacelle. Not trying to destroy the ship. Just cripple it. The pirate ship went dark, tumbling helplessly. The second pirate moved to intercept, but the drones swarmed around it, blocking firing solutions. The Persistence was already moving to its next target, weaving through the drone cloud like it was part of a choreographed dance. Velther watched in stunned silence as the humans dismantled a pirate force using tactics he had never seen before. No defensive formations. No sustained firepower. Just speed, unpredictability, and perfect coordination. 47 minutes after the engagement began, all 3 pirate ships were disabled. The Persistence docked with the mining colony, and Robert's security team breached the airlock. 12 minutes later, all 23 hostages were safely aboard. Not a single casualty. Velther sat in his observer seat, unable to speak. 4,000 years of military wisdom, and humans had just made it obsolete in less than an hour. Robert noticed his expression. "You okay, Ambassador?" You were magnificent," Velther managed. Robert shrugged. "We were lucky. Those pirates weren't expecting anything unusual." He smiled slightly. "But I guess being unusual is kind of our thing." The rescue operation made humans famous across the galaxy. Within 2 weeks, every council species knew the story of the Persistence and her crew. Ambassador Velther found himself answering uncomfortable questions from council leadership. How had humans become so capable so quickly? Were they a potential threat? Velther defended them, but privately he wondered the same things. The Galactic Trade Summit happened 3 months later. It was the most important economic event in council space, where trade routes were assigned and resource rights were distributed. Velther had attended 17 of these summits. The pattern never changed. Established species maintained their profitable routes. New species received whatever scraps remained. Humanity sent a delegation led by James Mitchell, their chief trade negotiator. He was a thin man with sharp eyes and a quick smile. Velther liked him immediately, which made what came next even harder to watch. The council assigned humanity the worst possible position. Their trade routes went through dangerous, unprofitable sectors. Their resource claims were limited to areas everyone else had already rejected. Their access to established markets was restricted with dozens of regulations, all justified as helping humanity learn proper procedures. James listened to everything with a polite expression. When the council finished their presentation, he simply said, "Thank you. We'll work with what we've been given." Velther expected anger or protest. The calm acceptance worried him more. 2 weeks after the summit, strange reports started arriving. Human trade ships were appearing in systems the council had marked as worthless. They were mining asteroids that supposedly contained nothing valuable. They were setting up automated factories in empty space. Within a month, human goods started appearing on independent colony markets. Tools that cost 30% less than council equivalents. Medical supplies that worked better and lasted longer. Food products that tasted better and stayed fresh longer. Electronics that were simpler to use and easier to repair. Velther studied the reports with growing confusion. How were humans doing this? Their assigned routes were terrible. Their resources were limited. Where was this production coming from? He scheduled a meeting with James Mitchell at a neutral space station. The human arrived looking relaxed and friendly. "Ambassador Velther, good to see you. How can I help? I'm seeing reports of human trade activity that don't match your assigned routes and resources. Can you explain?" James pulled up a holographic star map. "Sure. See this system here? The council survey from 800 years ago said it was resource poor. But we ran our own scans with different equipment. Turns out there are 3 asteroid clusters rich in rare metals. Nobody bothered to look carefully because the council survey said it wasn't worth the effort." "You're saying the council surveys were wrong?" "Not wrong exactly. Just incomplete. Your survey technology is really old, Ambassador. It misses things that our newer scanners can detect." James highlighted another system. This one supposedly had no habitable moons. But we found 2 that just needed minor atmospheric adjustments. Perfect for manufacturing facilities. Velther felt a cold sensation spreading through his body. "You're finding resources the council missed? Finding them, using them, and selling products made from them. No regulations against that, right? We're staying within our assigned territory." We're just making better use of it than anyone expected. Over the next month, the situation accelerated. Human manufacturers started offering direct contracts to struggling independent colonies. They bypassed the Council's traditional trading houses completely. Their prices were so much lower that even established colonies started switching suppliers. The Council's largest corporations suddenly faced real competition for the first time in centuries. Profit margins collapsed. Stock values dropped. Emergency meetings were called. Velther received dozens of angry messages from Council representatives. The most common accusation was that humans were somehow cheating or manipulating the system. He met with James again, this time less friendly. The Council is very concerned about your aggressive trade practices. You're destabilizing markets that have been stable for thousands of years. James didn't look concerned. We're following every rule and regulation. We're just doing it more efficiently. You're doing it differently than expected. Is that illegal? No, but... Then what's the problem? James leaned forward. Ambassador, let me be honest. We looked at the Council's economic system carefully. It's designed to keep new species subordinate. The surveys are outdated so nobody finds good resources in new territories. The regulations make it expensive for newcomers to compete. The trading houses form cartels to control prices. It's rigged. Velther wanted to argue but he couldn't. Everything James said was true. He had just never thought about it that way before. So we decided not to play that game, James continued. We found our own resources. We built our own supply chains. We offered better deals directly to customers. It's called free market competition. I'm surprised the Council forgot about it. This will have consequences, Velther warned. I hope so. Maybe it will force some improvements to a system that clearly isn't working for anyone except the species that were already powerful. The consequences came quickly. Within another month, 3 major Council corporations had declared bankruptcy. 5 independent colonies had switched completely to human suppliers. The Council's trade authority called an emergency session. The most powerful voice in that session belonged to the Krull sovereignty. They had controlled galactic trade for 12,000 years. Their Primarch addressed the Council with barely controlled fury. Humanity represents a threat to galactic stability. They refuse to respect established procedures. They undermine legitimate businesses. They spread chaos wherever they operate. This cannot continue. The Primarch's solution was simple. Humanity would submit to a technology assessment trial. The Council would review all human innovations and confiscate anything deemed dangerous or destabilizing. Humanity would accept proper oversight and follow proper procedures. Or they would be declared a rogue species and completely blockaded from Council space. Velther watched the vote happen. 32 Council species voted in favor. Only 8 voted against. He had to deliver the news to humanity himself. When he told James about the ultimatum, the human negotiator was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. Tell the Primarch we have a counteroffer. A public competition. They choose 5 categories of technology. If we can't outperform Council equivalents in at least 3 categories, we'll submit to oversight. If we win 3 or more, all restrictions and regulations on humanity are permanently lifted. The Krull will never accept that. They will if it's public. They're arrogant enough to think they'll win, and too proud to refuse a direct challenge. James was right. The Primarch accepted within a day, already choosing the 5 categories. Medical technology, energy generation, agricultural efficiency, materials science, and environmental restoration. All categories where the Krull had been supreme leaders for millennia. Velther tried to warn his human friends. This is a trap. These are their specialties. Robert Hayes just grinned. Good. Let's show them what we're good at. The entire galaxy was about to find out. The demonstration arena was built on a neutral space station orbiting a dead moon. Thousands of delegates from every Council species gathered to watch. Velther found himself in the diplomatic section, surrounded by officials who whispered predictions. Most thought humanity would be crushed. A few hoped the arrogant humans would finally learn their place. The Krull Primarch arrived with an entourage of 50 advisors and scientists. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with crystalline skin that reflected light in rainbow patterns. His species had ruled the Council's technological development for 12,000 years. They had refined their sciences to levels other species could barely understand. Humanity's team looked pathetically small by comparison. Dr. Emma Wright led a group of just 12 scientists and engineers. She was young, barely 40 years old. The Krull scientists were all over 200 years old, with centuries of experience. Robert Hayes stood with Velther in the observation area. "Your people look nervous," the ambassador noted. "They should be," Robert admitted. "The Krall are incredibly advanced. But that's not always the same thing as being right." The first challenge began. Medical technology. The Krall presented a patient suffering from cellular degeneration, a disease that had plagued their species for thousands of years. Their best treatment could slow the progression but never stop it completely. "This condition is considered incurable by all Council species," the Krall lead scientist announced. "We have spent 3,000 years researching it. Our current treatment extends life by approximately 40%. If humanity can do better, we will be impressed." Emma's team brought forward a portable medical unit that looked almost primitive compared to the Krall's massive diagnostic machines. A young doctor named Michael Porter explained their approach. "We've analyzed the genetic markers of the disease. The problem is that your traditional treatments fight the symptoms, not the cause. We use targeted gene therapy to repair the cellular damage at its source." The Krall scientists looked skeptical. Gene therapy was ancient technology. Every species had tried it. The Primarch gestured for them to proceed anyway, clearly expecting failure. Michael administered the treatment. It took 6 hours. The arena grew quiet as everyone watched the patient's medical readings. After 4 hours, the cellular degeneration slowed. After 5 hours, it stopped completely. After 6 hours, damaged cells began regenerating. "Impossible," whispered a Krall scientist. By the 8th hour, the patient was completely cured. Medical scans showed no trace of the disease. The Krall medical team ran the test 3 more times, certain there was an error. There was no error. Emma explained calmly, "The difference is computing power. Our gene therapy uses artificial intelligence to target billions of individual cells simultaneously with personalized treatments. It's not one cure. It's billions of unique cures happening at the same time, customized for each damaged cell." The Primarch's crystalline face showed no emotion, but Velther noticed his hands were clenched tightly. One victory means nothing. Proceed to the next challenge. Energy generation was next. The Krall displayed their antimatter reactor, a massive installation that required exotic materials from 6 different star systems. It powered stations and ships across Council space. The reactor in the demonstration produced enough energy to supply a city of 2 million people. The human team rolled in something that looked like a large barrel. "This is a fusion reactor," explained engineer David Chin. "It's 1/10 the size of your antimatter plant. It uses hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. No exotic materials needed." The Krall scientists laughed. Fusion technology was primitive. Every species started with fusion before advancing to antimatter. The energy output couldn't possibly compare. David activated the human reactor. The readings climbed steadily. Within 20 minutes, it reached 98% of the antimatter reactor's output. "How?" demanded a Krall engineer. "Magnetic containment fields controlled by quantum computers," David answered. "We can sustain fusion reactions at much higher temperatures and pressures than traditional methods. More importantly, this reactor costs about 5% of what your antimatter plant costs, and it can run for 50 years without maintenance." The arena erupted in conversations. Delegates pulled up their data pads, checking the numbers themselves. Velther saw council representatives from energy-poor species leaning forward with intense interest. The Primarch called for order. 2 victories. Statistically insignificant. Continue. Agricultural efficiency was third. The Krall presented their biodomes, elegant structures that had fed council populations for millennia. Their demonstration dome could feed 5,000 people using advanced genetic crops and automated systems. The human team showed holographic plans for vertical farming towers. "Our system feeds 8,000 people using the same ground space. Multiple growing levels, AI-optimized light and nutrients, and genetically adapted earth crops that grow faster and provide better nutrition." They activated a small-scale model. Plants grew at visible speeds under precisely controlled conditions. Different species on different levels, all monitored by computer systems that adjusted every variable thousands of times per day. A council agricultural expert stood up. "This is remarkable. Why has no one thought of this approach before?" Emma answered honestly. "Because Earth is crowded. We have billions of people and limited land. We had to learn to grow more food in less space or starve. Necessity forced innovation." The Krall Primarch's voice was cold now. 3 victories. This is concerning but not conclusive. We still have 2 categories. Material science was 4th. The Krall displayed their crystalline metals, stronger than anything else in the galaxy. They had built ships and stations with these materials for 10,000 years. The humans presented graphene composite sheets, flexible and light. The Krull scientists smiled. Clearly these couldn't match crystalline metal. The strength tests proved them wrong. The human materials were 60% lighter and actually stronger. They flexed instead of shattering under extreme stress. They could be manufactured at a fraction of the cost. 4 victories, someone whispered in the crowd. The Primarch stood abruptly. This is irregular. I demand verification of these results. There must be errors in measurement or... There are no errors, Velther heard himself saying. He stood up, surprising himself. I have watched humans for months now. They don't cheat. They simply solve problems differently than we do. The Primarch turned his rainbow gaze on Velther. You defend them? I defend truth. Velther's voice was steady. Proceed to the final challenge. Environmental restoration was last. The Krull had perfected terraforming over millennia. They could restore a dead planet's atmosphere in approximately 200 years. The humans demonstrated on the actual dead moon outside the station. They seeded it with engineered bacteria designed to convert the moon's mineral content into breathable atmosphere. The bacteria reproduced exponentially, spreading across the surface. 72 hours later, the moon had a thin but breathable atmosphere. The arena was completely silent. 5 challenges. 5 human victories. The Primarch's voice shook with rage. This is impossible. You must have stolen our technology. You must have cheated somehow. These results cannot stand. Then Velther did something he never thought he would do. He challenged the most powerful being in the galaxy. Velther stood in the silent arena, every eye turning toward him. His own species would probably exile him for what he was about to do. His career was over. But he had watched humans long enough to understand something the rest of the council had missed. They didn't cheat, Primarch, Velther said clearly. I've spent months with these beings. I've studied their history, their culture, their methods. Do you want to know what I learned? The Primarch's crystalline face twisted with anger. I want to know how newcomers defeated sciences we perfected over 12,000 years. That's exactly the problem, Velther replied. You perfected them. 12,000 years ago. Then you stopped. A murmur ran through the crowd. No one spoke to the Primarch this way. Velther continued, his voice growing stronger. Humans have a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. Do you know what their planet is like? It's a death world. Extreme temperatures. Violent weather. Predators everywhere. Diseases. Natural disasters. For 200,000 years, humans had to innovate every single day or die. They had no one to help them. No one to teach them. No friendly neighbors to share technology. Just endless struggle. He pulled up a holographic display of Earth's history. Look at their timeline. They invented agriculture, then improved it. They discovered metals, then found better alloys. They created medicine, then made it better. They built machines, then made them more efficient. They never stopped. They couldn't stop. Their world wouldn't let them. Emma Wright stepped forward. Ambassador Velther is right. We come from a hard place. But that made us good at solving problems. When we joined the galactic community, we saw lots of problems that nobody was fixing. Our technologies are not problems, the Primarch snapped. They are proven and refined. They're old, Emma said simply. Not bad. Just old. You made something that worked and then you stopped trying to make it better. Why would you? Everything was comfortable. You had trade networks and alliances. You had systems that functioned. There was no reason to change. Robert Hayes joined them. We didn't have that luxury. On Earth, if you stopped innovating, someone else would pass you. Competition drove us. Scarcity forced us to be efficient. Danger made us creative. We've only been in space for months, but we've been solving impossible problems for our entire existence as a species. Velther gestured to the human team. Look at their scientists, young by council standards. But they don't rely on centuries of experience doing things the same way. They question everything. They try new approaches. They fail quickly, learn fast, and try again. That's their strength. A council delegate stood up. Are you saying our experience is worthless? No, Velther said. I'm saying experience without adaptation becomes stagnation. The Krull have 12,000 years of expertise in energy generation. That's magnificent. But they've been using the same basic approach for most of that time, just refining it. Humans started fresh with different assumptions and found a completely different solution. James Mitchell, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. We're not better than you. We're just different. You built an incredible civilization across thousands of worlds. You created peace and stability. You achieved things we're still learning about. But you got comfortable. You stopped asking, what if we did this differently? The Primarch stared at them all. For a long moment, no one moved. Then he turned to his team of scientists. Is this true? Have we stopped innovating? One of the elder Crawl scientists, her crystalline skin marked with age, spoke quietly. Perhaps, Primarch. When I was young, we constantly experimented with new ideas. But over the centuries, we shifted to preserving what worked. It seemed wise at the time. Wise? The Primarch repeated bitterly. He looked at the humans. And now newcomers show us we've been sleeping. Not sleeping, Emma corrected gently. Resting. You built something stable and good. You just forgot that even good things can become better. The Primarch was quiet for another long moment. Then he did something Velther had never seen. The leader of the Crawl sovereignty bowed his head. The council rules were clear. Humanity won 5 of 5 challenges. All restrictions are lifted. He paused. And I would request that human scientists work with our research teams. Not to replace our knowledge. To combine it with your approaches. The arena erupted in shocked conversations. Other council species immediately began requesting similar partnerships. Within minutes, trade agreements and research collaborations were being negotiated throughout the crowd. Velther found himself surrounded by council officials asking questions. How could their species work with humans? What could they learn? Could humanity help with problems they'd struggled with for centuries? 3 months later, Velther stood on an observation deck watching a new ship launch. It was a joint construction, combining Crawl engineering precision with human innovative design. The crew was mixed, half council species and half human working together. Robert Hayes found him there. Still think we needed that 50-year mentorship program, Ambassador? Velther made the sound his species used for laughing. I think the galaxy needed it. We just didn't realize the students would be teaching the professors. It goes both ways, Robert said. Your people have knowledge we need. Deep space navigation that you've perfected over thousands of years. Diplomatic protocols that maintain peace. Cultural wisdom we're just beginning to understand. We're not replacing what you built. We're adding to it. Like your vertical farms, Velther said. Adding levels. Exactly. Robert smiled. You know what the best part is? Other council species are starting to innovate again too. The Zentari just announced a new approach to medicine based on combining their healing techniques with our gene therapy. The Morvani are redesigning their ships using principles from both our cultures. Everyone's trying new things. Velther watched another mixed crew boarding their ship. We forgot that progress requires discomfort. You reminded us. You gave us a community to belong to, Robert replied. That's equally valuable. Humans spent our whole history alone, fighting our own planet. Now we're part of something bigger. We have friends across the stars. Teachers who share knowledge freely. Partners who want to build things together. A communication came through. The joint ship was ready to depart on its mission, exploring regions of space no one had properly surveyed in centuries. Using human scanning technology and council navigation expertise together. There's an old Earth saying, Robert added. You can teach an old dog new tricks. You just need the right teacher. Or the humility to admit you need one, Velther said quietly. He looked at his human friend. I misjudged your species terribly when I first arrived. I saw primitives who needed guidance. I was blind. You saw what everyone sees at first, Robert said. But you learned. You adapted. You changed your mind when evidence demanded it. That's wisdom, Ambassador. Real wisdom. They watched the joint ship disappear into slipstream together, carrying a crew that represented what the galaxy could become. Not humanity replacing the Council or the Council restraining humanity. Both working together, combining strengths, covering weaknesses, and moving forward into possibilities neither could have achieved alone. Sorry we were better at some things than you, Robert said with a slight grin. Velther's laugh was genuine this time. Don't be sorry. Be ready. Because we're learning fast now. Next time maybe we'll surprise you. I hope you do, Robert said sincerely. That's how this should work. All of us pushing each other to be better. Velther looked out at the stars, at the ships moving between them, at the civilization that was older than human history but younger now than it had been in millennia. Reborn not through conquest but through collaboration. Strengthened not by dominance but by diversity. Welcome to the galaxy, Captain Hayes, he said softly. And thank you for waking us up.